Think your childhood TV shows were all joy? Think again. Behind the smiles lay exhaustion, fear, and secrets you never wanted to know. The truth is darker than you ever imagined. Tragic tales, twisted truths, and mysteries await. Your nostalgia is about to shatter, but hold on tight, because after you watch this video, you'll realize your childhood was a big, fat lie. Our trip down memory lane begins with the Mickey Mouse Club. Ah, the Mouseketeers, bright-eyed, energetic, and practically owned by Disney. Ever wonder how they kept that enthusiasm up? Well, spoiler alert, they didn't. Some of those kids clocked 12-hour days, exhausted but forced to smile. Annette Funicello, one of the actresses, once said they'd sneak food because they were kept so image-conscious they were borderline starving. And here's a brutal twist. Walt Disney himself fired a kid for growing too tall. Too much height? Too bad. Also, the original cast had a secret code, hand signals they'd flash to warn each other when Walt Disney was nearby. The second he was in sight, they snapped into perfect behavior, making sure not to put a toe out of line under his watchful eye. But Disney's grip didn't loosen when the camera stopped rolling. Many cast members found themselves stuck in its shadows for years, struggling to shake off their childhood fame. Some fought to find work beyond Disney's reach, their careers forever shaped by the very empire that made them stars. That tight grip lingered long after the camera stopped, and many struggling to escape Disney's shadow, a theme of control we'll see echo through other shows like this one. And speaking of echoes, let's shift to Sesame Street. Wholesome show? Sure, but let's dig deeper. Remember that heart-wrenching Mr. Hooper death scene? Those weren't just fake tears, those were real emotions. Big Bird's performer, Carol Spinney, was so shaken by that moment that he had to step away from filming. They did one take, just one, and that's the version that made it to air. No second chances. Now, here's something you might not expect. Oscar the Grouch wasn't always the lovable, grumpy guy we know. In early scripts, he was meant to be much darker, a bitter, abandoned puppeteer living in an actual pile of trash. It was only at the last minute they pulled it back just a little. And Big Bird almost got the axe as well. Executives didn't think kids would get his mix of innocence and wisdom. They seriously underestimated their audience. But the most surprising part is the Count's eerie demeanor did evolve over time, but there's no evidence that test audiences found him too creepy to handle. While his personality was gradually softened, the idea that he was toned down due to audience fear is just a myth. Now, how about we go back into the 1948 epic show Howdy Doody? Was it all just classic puppet fun? Not for the child actors. Those kids worked like pack mules. No school, no breaks, just endless scripts and cameras. And if that wasn't wild enough, here's the weirdest mystery. In 1948, the original Howdy Doody puppet was stolen. The crew panicked, convinced it was some kind of mafia hit, but there's no real evidence to back that claim up. What is true, however, is that with no time to waste, the network secretly remade the puppet overnight just to keep the show on air. Imagine being the poor guy explaining to NBC, sir, someone kidnapped our puppet. Then there was Buffalo Bob Smith, the show's iconic host. Turns out doing both hosting and Howdy's voice was exhausting, so exhausting that he had a secret backstage nap room. The man would literally pass out mid-break just to keep going. And of course, no classic show is complete without a little controversy. Rumors swirled for years that the show hid secret political messages in its episodes, though nothing was ever confirmed. Next up, Captain Kangaroo. Bob Keeshan's gentle, grandfathering energy on screen? Completely real. But behind the scenes, he fought CBS executives like a warrior. He hated advertising aimed at children, and once stormed off set when they tried to sneak a toy gun commercial onto the show. And the kids on set, well, they weren't so lucky. Extras had to stand for hours, no chairs allowed, because the show had a no-sitting rule for getting better camera angles. Also, Mr. Green Jeans, a beloved character, was rumored to have a secret life as a rock musician. His name was Hugh Branham, and he once played with big jazz bands before settling into his gentle farmer role. The show also had eerie moments, like when puppets seemingly moved on their own, sparking rumors that the set was haunted. Moving on, we have Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Fred Rogers was a saint, no doubt about it. But even saints feel pressure. He carried the weight of an entire generation's emotions on his shoulders. Guest kids often froze in front of him, overwhelmed by his kind yet intense gaze. Now, did you know that Fred once recorded a secret episode about the Vietnam War? It was never aired because executives thought it was too heavy for children. But that wasn't the only time he faced a battle. When public funding for educational TV was on the chopping block, Rogers took a stand. He delivered a powerful, emotional speech before Congress that actually saved PBS. And let's talk about the Trolleys' land of make-believe. It wasn't always the sweet, whimsical place we remember. Early sketches were much darker with intense storylines. They were toned down to make sure children wouldn't be scared away. And how about we move on to number 25, The Electric Company. This funky learning show was a trip, no doubt, but the children on set? They were working grueling hours juggling scripts and school. Believe it or not, Morgan Freeman, yes, that Morgan Freeman, hated his easy reader role. He once called it clowning for kids, and actually tried to quit multiple times. It was Rita Moreno, another legend, who had to talk him into sticking around. While the show's special effects were groundbreaking, they didn't come without risks. On-set malfunctions were common, and one actor even had a set piece fall on them during filming. But guess what? They were told to keep going, injuries and all. At number 24, we have The Muppet Show. Kermit may have ruled the screen, but the human kids, they were often just background props stuck holding poses for hours. The show's zany magic masked a grueling reality. Jim Henson and his team pushed themselves to the brink. Puppeteers were crammed into tight spaces, sweating under hot lights and holding their arms up for excruciating stretches. The pressure was immense. Jim Henson once collapsed from sheer exhaustion, and the crew had to revive him with coffee just to get him to keep filming. The behind-the-scenes drama was brewing. Network execs didn't believe the show would appeal to adults, but Henson fought tirelessly to prove that puppets weren't just for children. Next up, we have the interesting Pee-wee's Playhouse. Pee-wee's zany house may have been a wonderland on screen, but off-screen, pure controlled chaos. Some sketches were designed to deliberately freak children out. Think screaming windows or unsettling claymation scenes. Paul Rubens, the genius behind it all, improvised nearly half the show, sending the crew into a panic as they scrambled to keep up. There was no safety net. Whatever he said, they had to roll with it. And the set? It was a fever dream of bizarre props and surreal humor that somehow slipped past the censors. Behind the scenes, the crew often worked through the night to prepare for the madness that would unfold the following day. Now, do you remember Barney and Friends? That's number 22 on our list. Barney's sweet "I love you" hid a darker side. Kid cast members were bombarded with death threats from Barney-hating trolls. Imagine being a child actor and having grown adults send you threats over a purple dinosaur. The Barney suit wasn't any better. David Joyner, the man inside, had to use tantric yoga techniques just to survive the brutal heat. He'd sweat through multiple undershirts per episode. Meanwhile, lawsuits and rumors swirled around the show, one of which involved a scandalous urban legend about a disgruntled former Barney actor, which eventually turned into internet folklore. And how about we jump to the next one? All That. Nickelodeon's sketch comedy powerhouse gave us plenty of laughs, but behind the scenes, Dan Schneider's reign was a toxic mess. Child actors were overworked, underappreciated, and sometimes downright humiliated. And the worst part was that it was never legally proven. Kenan Thompson, one of the show's biggest stars, almost quit after a racist sketch was pitched to him. He kept it quiet for many years. Other cast members remembered being pushed to their breaking point just to keep up with the grueling filming schedule. Some scripts even had bizarre undertones, and Schneider's obsession with certain themes like feet began to show, though only a few noticed at the time. At number 20, we have The Amanda Show. Amanda Bynes was a rising star, but Schneider's influence twisted her show into a bizarre, goo-soaked circus of questionable humor. His signature style included disturbingly adult undertones aimed at tween audiences. Some of the jokes were almost indistinguishable from adult film parodies, just disguised as kid-friendly skits. Amanda's parents tried to fight Nickelodeon over her grueling work schedule, since she was a teenager working adult-level hours, but they lost every time. Years later, Amanda herself would speak out about the pressures of fame and the mental toll it took on her. Next up, we have Drake and Josh. The laughs were real, but so was the silence when it came to Drake Bell's abuse at the hands of Brian Peck, a convicted child predator working on the show. Hollywood kept it hush-hush. Meanwhile, Josh Peck found ways to rewrite lines to avoid Schneider's infamous foot fetish gags. Yes, they were already rampant by this point. The chemistry between the leads masked an industry that didn't protect its young stars as well as it could have, behind closed doors. The pressure of Nickelodeon's demand for perfection weighed heavily on everyone involved. Next, we're going to jump to a TV show that relates to a boarding school, Zoe 101. It was supposed to be a dreamy boarding school fantasy, but the reality was Alexa Nicholas, one of the main cast members, later revealed that working with Schneider was like living under a shadow. He controlled everything from the wardrobe to the dialogue, often making young actors quite uncomfortable. Jamie Lynn Spears nearly quit the show due to behind-the-scenes stress. Then pregnancy rumors erupted, throwing the production into chaos. The network scrambled to figure out what to do, and the scandal overshadowed the show's final days. Moving on, we have iCarly, a web show turned into a TV phenomenon, but Schneider's obsession with feet was on full display. Seriously, give it a rewatch if you want. You'll cringe at how many foot-related jokes made it into the scripts. Miranda Cosgrove was the perfect lead, but perfectionism on set wasn't always fun. There was one scene she had to shoot 50 times. Why? No one's really sure. Was it about getting the perfect take, or was it a form of punishment disguised as perfection? Either way, the pressure was insane, and many of the young cast members struggled under the weight of it. Next up, it's Ariana Grande's Victorious. Ariana Grande shined, but did you ever notice how her character was always in the weirdest, most degrading situations? Potato milking, getting covered in goo. It wasn't random, it was a power trip from Schneider. Victoria Justice, the show's lead, constantly clashed with him. The tension was real, and behind the scenes, the crew called her the rebel for standing up to his bizarre demands. Meanwhile, the show's toxic set dynamic eventually led to an abrupt end, with feuds and frustrations boiling over. At number 15, we have Rugrats. On the surface, it was a show about adventurous babies, but the plot lines, they were pretty dark. Parents constantly ditching their children, Angelica's ruthless manipulation, and some serious, eerie undertones in certain episodes. Early drafts of the show even painted Angelica's mom as an alcoholic, but that detail was scrapped for being too real. Then there were the creepier episodes like Angelica's Worst Nightmare, which hinted at a deeper, more unsettling theme lurking beneath the surface. This wasn't just a fun cartoon. There were hidden layers that only became clear years later. Next up is Are You Afraid of the Dark? This show gave kids nightmares, but the scariest part is some of the actors quit mid-filming because the night shoots were too terrifying. The ghastly Grinner episode was so unsettling that Nickelodeon received hate mail from parents claiming their children had nightmares for weeks. The low-budget special effects actually made things creepier. Sometimes actors had no idea what they were reacting to, making the terror feel real. Off camera, it wasn't unusual for actors to be genuinely spooked by the eerie sets and chilling scripts. Next up, we have The Adventures of Pete and Pete. Quirky and weird, but filming the show wasn't always fun. The directors ran wild with experimental storytelling, forcing young actors into brutal conditions like freezing mud. Danny Tamborelli even got frostbite during a shoot, but kept filming because no one wanted to halt production. The show's absurdity and offbeat humor made it a cult classic, but behind the scenes, the kids were just trying to survive the madness. Next up, we're going to talk about Melissa Joan's show, Clarissa Explains It All. Melissa Joan Hart carried the show, but the schedule, absolutely relentless. 16-hour days were the norm, and exhaustion was a constant battle. The iconic ladder entrance? It was a funny story. One of the crew members got drunk on set and fell off it, leading to a strict new rule banning alcohol near production. The grind never stopped, and Hart later admitted that balancing schoolwork with filming felt nearly impossible. Next up, we have everyone's favorite, the Teletubbies. Cute? Maybe. But that sun baby, it haunted many kids' dreams. And the actors inside those giant suits, they fainted constantly. The costumes were unbearably hot, and filming outside in the English countryside did not help. The BBC got death threats when Tinky Winky's purse sparked a ridiculous moral panic. Some thought it was promoting an agenda, even though the character was literally just carrying a bag. The show was surreal, and so was the drama that surrounded it. At number 10, the Banana Splits Adventure Hour. Picture this. a zany Hanna-Barbera live-action romp with costumed animal rock stars, Fleagle, Bingo, Drooper, and Snorky serving up laughs and tunes. Sounds like a blast, right? Well, the set was not a blast. Instead, it was a disaster. Those suits, suffocating. Actors baked within them, sometimes passing out from heat exhaustion on the Six Flags set, where they filmed under the brutal Texas sun. One puppeteer, Frank Gagliardi, the Drooper, nearly died while his mask flooded with sweat during a stunt. The show's slapstick violence, like Drooper's cartoonish mallet whacks, raised red flags with parents who worried kids would start mimicking it, leading to a psychologist's study linking it to playground injuries. And the kicker? Sid and Marty Krofft, rival producers, sued Hanna-Barbera, claiming it ripped off their HR Pufnstuf. The legal battle dragged on for years, souring the whole vibe. Speaking of Krofft, next up we have their psychedelic fever dream, HR Pufnstuf. A dragon mayor, a talking flute, and a kid stranded on a trippy island. Innocent fun? Not exactly. The set was a nightmare. Actors in heavy costumes battled 100-degree studio heat, with Billy Hayes as Witchapoo collapsing twice from dehydration. Jack Wilde, the 16-year-old star, later said producers plied him with booze to loosen up post-filming, kickstarting a tragic alcoholism spiral that tanked his career and life by 51. The show's druggy undertones, Pufnstuf's name, a wink at pot, drew FCC scrutiny, and a 70 episode was pulled after parents freaked out over a mushroom dance scene. Moving on, we have Land of the Lost. Dinosaurs, Sleestaks, and a family lost in time. Saturday morning gold, right? But let's dig a little bit deeper. The budget was so tight that kid actors Wesley Ear and Kathy Coleman filmed in unventilated caves choking on dry ice fog. Ear even caught pneumonia once and was sidelined for a week. The Sleestak costumes, torture chambers. Actors fainted from heat stroke, and one, John Locke, quit after a claw prop gashed his arm, requiring 20 stitches. The writers even slipped in some seriously bleak themes: abandonment, survival, like the unaired script where Marshall Sr. mercy kills an injured Chaka. Creepy stuff, right? What do you think they left behind in that tar pit? Comment below. And how about we jump to the next one, the Magic School Bus. Miss Frizzle's wild rides taught science with a smile, but behind the scenes, it wasn't all fun and games. Animators worked brutal 80-hour weeks. One completely exhausted botched a cell, causing a month-long delay. Producers docked his pay for it. Voice star Lily Tomlin clashed with execs over dumbing down her lines, even storming out twice. A planned episode about bodily fluids got scrapped because PBS balked, too gross for kids, they said. And the book's creator, Joanne Cole, hated the show's wacky tone, calling it a betrayal in a 1996 interview. Next on the list is our favorite blue little people, none other than the Smurfs. Those buddies singing la 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 la, pure innocence, right? Well, think again. It paints a much murkier picture. The Smurfs' world wasn't all mushroom houses and harmony. Early scripts even had Gargamel eating Smurfs in a scrapped cannibal plot. Way too terrifying for Saturday morning cartoons. Animator burnout was brutal. Some worked 18-hour shifts, with one animator collapsing mid-frame and getting hospitalized for exhaustion. Even the voice actress Lucille Bliss, who did Smurfette's voice, received death threats from fans obsessed with her perfect voice. Creepy stuff, right? And that catchy theme? Composer Hoyt Curtin admitted it was a recycled jingle from a failed cereal ad, reworked to brainwash kids. Moving on, we have Fraggle Rock. Jim Henson's underground puppet party. Cute critters dancing with doozers and gorgs, but let's dig into the grit of it. Puppeteers were crammed under sets in sweltering caves. Jerry Parks once fainted from heat stroke, delaying a shoot. A darker plot had the Fraggles facing starvation after a cave-in, axed for being too hopeless. In '85, the set caught fire from a faulty light rig and puppeteer Steve Whitmer burned his hand saving a prop. And hear me out, Henson originally pitched it as an allegory for class struggle, but the execs softened it to just being fun. At number 4, we have Reading Rainbow. LeVar Burton's book-loving haven, wholesome to the core, but not so fast. Let's flip a few pages in and find out more. PBS slashed budgets every year, and Burton took pay cuts to keep it going, even sleeping in his car during a funding crisis. In 1991, there was an episode about war orphans that was pulled after some sponsor backlash. It was too real for the rainbow. Crew members worked unpaid overtime. One editor quit after a nervous breakdown, citing book burnout. And poor Burton, he faced a lot of racist hate mail for daring to host as a black man, some letters even threatening his life. Next up, the Wuzzles. Hybrid critters like Bumblelion and Illyro seemed like short-lived Disney fluff, right? Well, think again. The claws go deeper. The show tanked after 13 episodes, but not before backstage hell broke loose. Animators were forced to churn out frames at lightning speed, with one suffering carpal tunnel and suing Disney for damages. A darker cut had Croc, the villain, skinning a Wuzzle for its fur, shelved after a test kid screamed. Voice actor Bill Scott died mid-production from a heart attack, and they scrambled to replace him, leaving the cast shaken. And the plush toys? A factory fire torched thousands, sparking rumors of a curse. Next up, we have Disney's first big toon hit, Gummy Bears. Bouncing bears with magic juice, but let's sour the gummy goodness for just a moment. Animators in Japan worked sweatshop hours, some slept under desks, and one quit after a panic attack. One scrapped episode had Duke Igthorn poisoning the gummy berry juice, killing a bear, which was too dark even for Disney at the time. Even the voice star June Foray was not spared. He got stalked by a fan who mailed her creepy drawings of gummies in cages, and that bouncy theme was ripped right from a failed soda jingle, rushed to air. And last but not least, we have the Care Bears. Those cuddly cloud-hopping bears with their belly badges spreading love and hugs, but unfortunately we had to flip that rainbow upside down. Those pastel pals had a gritty underside that you'd never guess. Animators were worked to the brim, many pulling 20-hour shifts in a cramped Toronto studio. One, exhausted, scribbled "help me" on a frame that accidentally aired in '86, sparking a scandal. The original pitch was actually a lot darker. Grumpy Bear was a sarcastic loner who abandoned Care-a-Lot after a failed coup. And No Heart wasn't just evil, he was a child-eating warlock, scrapped after execs claimed it was nightmare fuel. Voice actress Billie Mae Richards chain-smoked between takes, rasping lines through a haze. She once coughed so hard she passed out mid-session, and producers propped her up with some coffee and kept rolling. And the plush toys that flooded the stores? While there were concerns about poor labor conditions in Chinese toy factories, there's no confirmation that links Care Bears specifically. And there you have it, 30 shows that shaped us, scarred us, and hid a whole lot of crazy behind the scenes. From mouse-ear sweatshops to slime-soaked nightmares, there was no fairy tale, it was a reckoning. Many of these kids and crew members gave us joy, but at what cost? Next time you hum those old theme songs, we hope that you think about the shadows it might cast. Would you have guessed that this was happening behind the scenes for your favorite shows? Let me know in the comments below. Also, do you want to uncover even more hidden truths? Check out the untold stories behind iconic 80s sitcoms. You won't believe what went down behind the scenes. And if you love deep dives like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started. There's always more beneath the surface, and I have the shovel. Until next time, stay curious and keep on digging.